I recently found out that my ex-boyfriend of almost 3 years got engaged to the lead singer of his band, and I want to talk about it. And if you're new here, which most of you probably are, hi, my name is Shantae. I'm 26 years old, and I am finally ready to share my mild relationship trauma with the internet. So the year is 2020, August to be specific, and I met this guy who completely just blew me away. We'll call him John. And John was so kind and so smart and was in school for meteorology. We were both students at the same university, and that's how we met. And obviously it was 2020, so we're in the peak of a pandemic. The world is very much shut down. And so I feel like whenever we first met each other and got together, like that was what we needed, because people weren't consistently hanging out with their friends. We were away at school, so we weren't seeing our families. Like the world was just shut down. And so in a way, we became a lifeline for each other. And so instead of spending time with, a bunch of our friends the way that you would typically in college, like we were spending time together. And I guess in a way, quarantining together, because that was one of the safest ways to do it at the time. And so very quickly, we formed a bond, a connection. Within a month of really knowing each other, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I said yes. I told my family about him, which was something that I had never done before. And my mom, who's Jamaican, was not a fan initially of me dating in general. But the more that I told her about the guy, I think that she warmed up and everything was fine. But yeah, like the first 6 months of our relationship were just absolute bliss. Like whenever I think back to probably the happiest time that I've had in a relationship thus far, even with all of the years that have passed, I would probably think of those first 6 months, because we were doing so many different things together. He was a musician, as I mentioned, with the band. And so I was going to, different performances that he would put on with other familiar musicians in Oklahoma. And it was a vibe. But at about the 6-month mark, I remember, I think we were in like a Freddy's parking lot. We had just gotten food, and he just kind of offhandedly, casually mentioned to me that he was thinking of starting a band, and that there was a girl in one of his classes, one of his virtual classes at the time. I don't know if they met in person, not important. But there was a girl in one of his classes who he knew used to like perform music and like writes music. And he said that she probably missed performing. And so he was planning on asking her to be part of the band. I know that in modern dating culture that it's really common for both men and women to kind of have strong opinions about their significant other having friendships of like the opposite sex. And so, a lot of women don't like for their man to be friends with other women. And for me personally, like that's never something that's bothered me. I actually think it's a really good sign when you have like women in your life who you don't view as objects and who you're not interested in romantically, but you value them and you value their friendship and like what they bring to your life and vice versa. And so it wasn't something that I thought too hard about. I was like, okay, cool. Like, you want to start a band? Fantastic. Go ahead. And I remember, I guess he reached out to her and they started spending more time together. And, my eyebrows kind of went up a little bit. But really my inclination was to say, hey, if this is going to be somebody who you're spending more time with, like I would love to get to know this person. If she's coming over to your house and you're writing music together and, y'all are texting or whatever the case may be, like I would love to know who this person is. And I believe that it actually took me several months to meet this girl in person, even though we went to the same university, lived in the same town at the time. But I think the first time that I met her was at this local Italian restaurant that my boyfriend would perform like jazz at, with again, other musicians. And so he was hosting like the same performance basically back to back. And I missed the first performance because I was out of town. I was visiting family in Tulsa. But I knew that the girl had gone to the performance, and so missed that opportunity to meet her. But then I was able to catch the second performance, and when I showed up at that performance, she showed up again as well to watch the exact same show, which I thought was kind of interesting, but okay. And I remember officially like introducing myself to her, sitting down and, kind of enjoying just a moment with her and one of her friends who she had brought with her, and just finally getting to see her interact with my boyfriend at the time. And we will call this girl Blue. If you know, you know. Eventually, I did kind of start to feel weird about their relationship and about their connection, just because I felt like he was spending noticeably more time with her, and like I understood that he was trying to get his band off the ground, but didn't want to think too much of it. But I do think at some point I did tell him like, hey, like I think that, you know, with the way that this girl is acting and with the way that she's treating you, like she may have feelings for you, which he denied. And then I remember there was one moment when he actually did reaffirm what I was saying, and he said, hey, you know, yeah, I did talk to her, and Blue admitted that she has feelings for me. So there was no question in my mind. This wasn't a situation of Shantae's crazy, Shantae's jumping to conclusions, and she's just insinuating that there's something between the two of us, but there isn't. She admitted that she had feelings for him while she knew that he was in a relationship with me. So from that point forward, the story just kind of descends into madness, because everything just gets dramatically worse. Like after she admitted the first time that she had feelings for him, I think that maybe he set like a little bit more boundaries. I don't think that he saw her as often. Things seemed like they were getting better because he had expressed to her, hey, I'm in a relationship with Shantae. I'm not interested in anything with you, or at least that's what he told me. And so that gave me the reassurance that I needed, because I was kind of like taken aback at the fact that you would admit that you have feelings to someone who's in a relationship. If that were me personally, I would never. That's not something that I've ever felt. I don't think that's something that I would ever allow myself to feel. And maybe that's me jumping to conclusions because I know that there's so many different weird situations that people find themselves in. But I just think that you have basically an obligation to kind of establish those boundaries. And if you can't handle it or you can't deal with it, then simply don't put yourself in that position. And she continued placing herself in position to be near him and to be around him and like looking for opportunities to just, you know, connect with him in some different way. And so again, my boyfriend at the time and this girl Blue are in a band together. And so it's not just the two of them. Like he's the saxophonist, she's the lead singer, but they also have a guitarist and a bassist and a drummer. And they're going on to ramp up and write more songs together and perform more together. And it was never my goal for the band to break up. That was never something that I wanted. Like my boyfriend was so passionate about music and I loved seeing him happy. I loved seeing him perform. But I just kept wanting him to set boundaries with this girl because she took advantage of every opportunity to be next to him and, you know, to do all of the things and the way that she would look at him. But really the kicker is the songs that she would write about not only him, my boyfriend, John, but about me, about our relationship, and just kind of her yearning for this guy that she can't have. And so she ended up writing and releasing this song on Instagram called Fake Book. Again, if you know, you know. And it's all like an allusion basically to a jazz standard, a real book, where she's talking about this guy who she wants and who led her on. And, you know, you can tell while she's singing in this original video how angry that she is. And she dropped it the day after he initially told her, hey, I'm in a relationship. I'm not interested in you. And so you could tell that she felt slighted by that again, even though she knew that I existed and she had met me and she had still tried to shoot her shot, which I think is diabolical, and not something that I would ever do. But I digress. And so essentially, like I started to descend into absolute chaos internally. And I started to experience a lot of anxiety for the first time in my life. I don't think that I'm naturally like a super anxious person. And so because of that, it took me a lot longer to identify like what was going on with me and what these signs were and why I was feeling the way that I was. But I was waking up in the middle of the night with heart palpitations. My heart was racing. My appetite like greatly diminished, and I was losing weight over several months. And for a long time, I just could not figure out why. And at that point, I felt so deep into the relationship. Like by the time I did realize, I felt like I was so deep into the relationship that I just wanted to fix it. And I felt like I was the problem because everybody was telling me, or more specifically, my boyfriend and the lead singer of the band were telling me there is nothing between us. Like, because time had passed and eventually, you know, she was saying like, oh no, you know, I'm over it. And we'll get to that. But basically like she was just writing songs about everything. And for me, that felt like it was almost like reading her diary in a way, because my boyfriend keeps telling me there's nothing going on, but all of the songs that she's releasing on Instagram were basically begging to differ. He would give her a ride one night, and then the very next day she's dropping a song talking about this golden boy who she wants so bad, but she just can't have. We ran into her at Walmart one time, and so she wrote a song called Grocery Store where she's singing about not wanting to be introduced next to the fresh produce to his girlfriend, and about how he's so polite, but she doesn't want to experience that. Like things that were obviously connected to us in our relationship, but that he denied greatly, and that I'm sure she also would have denied to my face as well. We're getting close to the 10-minute mark, which I was hoping not to exceed. But anyways, stay tuned for part 2.
If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. Of course he was cheating on you. She wouldn't have been going so hard for him if they weren't doing something behind closed doors. Let this be a lesson to everybody. If he has like a homegirl or a best friend or somebody on the side, most likely that's his his side piece that if your relationship don't work out, he gonna go to her. What do you guys think? Put it in the comment section below.